You are welcome to today's lesson. Today we are continuing our discussion on rigid motion, and our subtopic is reflection in the line y equals k, and this will be our last type of reflection. Now, what are the types of reflection we've looked at so far? So we've looked at reflection in the x-axis. We've also talked about reflection in the y-axis, reflection in the line y equals x, reflection in the line y equals negative x. We've also looked at reflection in the line x equals k, which can also be written as x minus k equals 0. And lastly, we are looking at reflection in the line y equals k, which can also be expressed as reflection in the line y minus k equals 0. And so how do we plot reflection in the line y equals k? How do I identify the mirror line? And so as usual, I'll need the x and the y-axis. I'll need the positive and the negative side of the y-axis. I'll need the positive and the negative side of the x-axis. And remember, we are dealing with reflection in the line y equals k. Remember, in our previous lesson, we said that the k represents a constant. And we said a constant can be any value. It can be either a positive or a negative value. So this implies that whatever value I pick for k, it will be the same value for y. So for instance, if I pick my k value to be 3, it means automatically my y value becomes 3. In this instance, I am dealing with reflection in the line y equals 3. Reflection in the line y equals 3. So quickly on my graph sheet, I just move to the y-axis and identify the point 3. Remember, it is a positive number. So that is the point 3 on the y-axis. And this time around, we are going to draw a line through the point 3. So this is how it appears like. And so anytime I'm dealing with reflection in the line y equals k, the mirror line over here appears horizontally. And so because it is cutting the y-axis, and when that happens, it appears horizontally. Now what if I pick the k value to be negative 4? If k is negative 4 or my constant is negative 4, it means automatically my y value also becomes negative 4. And so in the same way, I just have to identify negative 4 on the y-axis. So that is negative 4 on the y-axis. And in the same way, I'm going to draw a line through the point negative 4. So that is it. So now this becomes my mirror line. Now let's solve a simple example under reflection in the line y equals k. And so this time we have to reflect the point 4, negative 2, and also negative 2, 4. And remember, we are reflecting in the line y equals 2. So this time the constant over here is a positive 2. So quickly, we just identify the mirror line. So since we are dealing with reflection in the line y equals 2, we are going to draw this mirror line through the point 2 on the y-axis. And we quickly move to the point given to us. So the first point is 4 on the x-axis and negative 2 on the y-axis. And so in the same way, if I want to reflect this point on the line y equals 2, I'm going to move the point towards the mirror line. So in the same way, I'm going to move according to the scale I have on the graph sheet. And so we move 1, 2, 3, 4. So I moved 4 steps to get to the mirror line. In the same way, I'm going to move 4 steps away from the mirror line to produce the image point. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So the last point over here produces the image called 4, 6. In the same way, we pick the next object point, which is negative 2, 4. And we are going to move towards the mirror line. So this time around we are moving down because the mirror line is below the point, and so we are going to move according to the scale in the graph. So I'm going to move this point, so 1 2. So I move 2 steps to get to the mirror line. In the same way, I'm going to move 2 steps away, so 1 2. So now this point over here becomes -2 0. Now what do you observe? You observe that the first point given to us was 4 -2, and that produced the image point 4 6. The second point over here was -2 4, and that also produced -2 0. And so you observe that the x coordinate of the first point was +4, and that was the same +4 we had in our image point. That is the x coordinate of the image point. The only thing that changed was the y coordinate. So the y coordinate changed from -2 to +6. In the same way, in our second point, the x coordinate remained the same. The only thing that changed was the y coordinates, which changed from +4 to 0. So this implied that anytime we are dealing with reflection in the line y equals k, always the x coordinate of the object point remains the same as the x coordinate of the image point. The only thing that changes are the y coordinate. That is what you can see marked in the color red. Now let's take note. Remember, the first point we plotted on the graph was 4 -2, and we're reflecting this point on the line y equals 2, and that produced the image point for 6. And so you can see that the x coordinate remained the same, and the only thing that changed was the y coordinate, which changed from -2 to +6. So what we are saying is that anytime you are dealing with reflection in the line y equals k, the only thing that changes are the y coordinates. If you remember, in reflection, that is in our previous lesson, when we were dealing with reflection in the line x equals k, the only thing that changed were the x coordinates. So let's take note of that. Now we can also solve for the image point without using the mirror line. And so in that case, it means I have to rewrite my object point in a column form. So that is why we see 4 -2 mapping to the x coordinate, which is still 4. Then on the y coordinate, we have 2 multiplying to minus -2. Then that gave us the answer 4 as the x coordinate, and the y coordinate we see 4 plus 2, which later produced the final answer as 4 6. Now what does this imply? Remember, since we are dealing with reflection in the line y equals k, our emphasis is on the y axis because that is the only thing that changes. And so on the y axis, we can see that 2 is in the bracket, and this 2 is what we are calling the constant k. So this constant k is what we see here. That is reflection in the line y equals 2. So this constant 2 is multiplied by 2. It's just as the same as when we're dealing with reflection in the line x equals k. But this time around, our focus is on the y coordinate. In reflection in the line x equals k, the focus was on the x coordinate. Please take note of that. And so what do? We multiply the number in the bracket, which is the constant, by 2, and then subtract the y coordinate, which is what we see here, -2. So when we do that, what happens? You can see that the 2, which is in yellow, will multiply the 2, which is the constant, to give 4. So 4, then minus multiplying -2 will give us a positive value. So that is why we see 4 plus 2, and that gives us the y coordinate to be 6. So since we are dealing with reflection in the line y equals k, remember we said the x coordinate remains the same. So that is why we see the 4 repeating itself. And so in general terms, anytime I have the object point to be a point A, which is xy, and I'm reflecting in the line y equals k, what that means is that my focus is on the y coordinate. So the x coordinate remains the same. That is why we see the x repeating. So on the y coordinate, we say that we multiply the constant k by 2, then we subtract the y coordinate, and that will produce your image point A1. Now let's look at an example. In this example, you have to draw the triangle PQR with vertices P, which is 6, 4, Q, which is 5, 6, and R, 3, 4. And also you have to draw the image triangle P1, Q1, R1 of triangle PQR under a reflection in the line y equals 2. And lastly, we are also to indicate the coordinates of the triangle P1, Q1, R1. And so to be able to solve this question, definitely we'll need our graph sheet. And on my graph sheet, I'm still using a scale of 2 centimeters to 1 unit. Remember, we're given certain points to plot. The first point was P64, Q56, and R34. And we are reflecting in the line y equals 2. So quickly, since we are dealing with reflection in the line y equals 2, I just have to move to the y-axis and identify the mirror line on the point 2. So now this becomes my mirror line. So we pick the first point P, which is 6, 4, Q, which is 5, 6, and R, which is 3, 4. So quickly we join P to Q, we join Q to R, then finally we join P to R. And that forms the triangle PQR. And remember, we are reflecting this triangle on the mirror line, which is y equals positive 2. So to do that, we pick the first point, which is P, and move towards the mirror line. So how many steps are we going to move? So I'm going to move 1, 2. So I move 2 steps to get to the mirror line. So in the same way, I'm going to move 2 steps away from the mirror line to produce the image point. So let's move 1, 2. So that point over here becomes P1, which is 6, 0. I'll pick the next point, which is Q, and move towards the mirror line. So let's count. And I'm moving according to the scale. So please take note of that. So I'll move 1, 2, 3, 4. So I move 4 steps to get to the mirror line. The same way, move 4 steps away. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So the last point over here produces the image point Q1, which is 5, negative 2. And the last point is R. We move towards the mirror line as well. So let's move 1, 2. So in the same way, 2 steps away, 1, 2. And that produces the image point, which we are calling R1, which is 3, 0. So quickly we join the points together. So I'll join P1 to Q1. I'll join Q1 to R1. And lastly, P1 to R1. And that forms the image triangle P1, Q1, R1. Now you observe that the first point we plotted, which was P, 6, 4, produced the image point P1, which is 6, 0. The second point, Q, which was 5, 6, produced the image point Q1, which was 5, negative 2. And the last point, R, 3, 4, produced the image point R1, 3, 0. And so you observe that in the first point, the x-coordinate is still the same as the x-coordinate of the image point. The only thing that changed were the y-coordinate, which changed from 4 to 0. And in the second point, which is point Q, the x-coordinate remained the same. The only thing that changed were the y-coordinate, which changed from 6 to negative 2. And the last point R, the x-coordinate still remains the same. The only thing that changed is the y-coordinate, which changed from positive 4 to 0. And so just as we said, in reflection in the line y equals k, the only thing that changes is the y coordinate. The x coordinate always remains the same. Now let's take note that anytime I have a point A, x, y, and I'm reflecting in the line y equals 2, I can solve this without using the mirror line. So I just have to rewrite the point in the column form. So xy mapping to x. So we can see that the x coordinate remains the same because we are dealing with reflection in the line y equals k. So the only thing that changes is the y coordinate. So just as we said, 2, the constant k will be multiplied by 2 minus the y coordinate, and that will produce my image point A1. So for instance, the first point we plotted, which was P 6, 4, to solve this without using the mirror line, remember the x coordinate will still remain the same. That is why 6 is repeating. So on the y coordinate, we multiply the constant 2 by the number 2 and subtract the y coordinate 4, and that will produce 6, 0 as the image point. The second point to 5, 6, remember that the x coordinate remains the same. That is why we see 5. So on the y coordinate, we multiply the constant, which is 2, by the number 2 and subtract the y coordinate, which is 6, and that will produce the image point Q1, 5, negative 2. And the last point R, which was 3, 4, to reflect in the line y equals 2. In the same way, the x coordinate remains the same, and on the y coordinate, we multiply the constant k by 2 and subtract the y coordinate, and that will produce the image point R1, which is 3, 0. Now your assignment for the lesson. In this assignment, you have to draw the triangle PQR with vertices P, which is 4, 5, Q 10, 4, and R 5, 10. And also you have to draw the triangle P1, Q1, R1 of triangle PQR under a reflection in the line y equals 3. And lastly, you are also to indicate the coordinates of the triangle P1, Q1, R1. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next lesson.